Our keynote speaker, Dr. Martin, is a very dynamic and transformational speaker that has inspired audience all over the world. He coaches leaders, executives, and people at all levels to implement the internal and external tools and resources that will propel them to maximum performance. He uses wisdom and techniques learned from his Ph.D. in psychology and running his own business. Please help me and join me to welcome Dr. Martin, my good friend from Dallas, to the stage.
Thank you, Haas. Thank you. Awesome. Thank you so much. Really appreciate Haas and to Dylan for getting me here. Let's give Dylan a big round of applause as well. So thank y'all. Okay, so here's what I need you to do. I want you to picture in living color an absolute fantastic employee, the kind of employee that everybody here would love to have working at their company. Get a good, clear picture of them in your mind. Give me some of the characteristics. Describe them. One word. On time. Loyal. Responsible. Accountable. High energy. Common sense. Positive attitude. Okay, awesome. Now, in kind of black and white, I want you to picture that not so great employee, okay? That one that everybody would love to get rid of. Just think about that person. Now give me some of their characteristics. Lethargic. Negative. What was it? Fake. Doesn't listen. Not dependable. Holy cow, what kind of people are y'all working with? What is going on here? So I'm convinced. I ran my own company for 20 years, hired and fired a lot of people. I've been in the last 10 years in and out of a lot of different companies, mom and pops all the way to Fortune 100. And I'm convinced there are two kinds of employees out there. There are what I call in my book the Stacy's. Stacy's are rock star employees. These are people who show up every day. They're ready to rock and roll. They don't have to be told what to do. They take initiative. They get out there. They're innovating. They're coming up with all sorts of great things. Stacy's make the company great and make the company money. And then there's what I call in the book the crawlies, okay? They're zombie employees. Now, what happens when a zombie bumps up against a chain link fence? Do they go looking for wire cutters to figure out a way to get through the fence? Yes or no? That's y'all's cue, by the way, to respond out loud, okay? Yes or no? No. Do they go looking for a way to get around that chain link fence? Yes or no? No. What they do is they just keep bumping up against that fence and hoping they reach critical mass with other zombies, and the sheer weight will knock that fence right down, and somehow they'll proceed. Zombies live for one thing, and that is to eat, and in corporate America, that's drawing a paycheck. So they show up, they do just enough to get their job done, but that's about it. Now, Gallup shows consistently over and over again that there's a certain percentage of Stacy's in your typical U.S. company, and a certain percentage of zombies. What percentage of highly engaged employees do you think Gallup shows there are at your typical U.S. company? 20%. 20. 25. I feel like an auctioneer right now. What was that? 8? Okay. That's very dark. 60, okay? The number is actually 29%. Now, I don't know about you, but I think that's ridiculous. That means a third of the workforce is actually fully engaged. That's like having a 6-string guitar with only 2 strings working, like having a 6-cylinder engine, only 2 cylinders working. It's like having a 3-legged stool and only 1 leg is where I can go on and on. This is really easy math, right? Just take anything and divide it by 3. But that's what we're dealing with at a typical company, that low level of engagement. Now, raise your hand if you've experienced that and you know what I'm talking about, either in your company or places you shop and do. Okay, absolutely. So here's the $64,000 question. Why do you think that is? Why is engagement so low at your typical company? There are all right answers here. You're not going to get this wrong. Lack of motivation. Lack of vision. We don't focus enough attention on getting them engaged. Now, come on, somebody's got to say the millennials. Okay, I'm just kidding. This problem has actually been around a lot longer than when the millennials just showed up. Culture, all sorts of things. I think it's all of those things combined, but I also think it is just flat out boredom. People are bored with what the company's about, what the vision is, what the mission is, what we're trying to accomplish. Daniel Burnham many years ago said, "Make no small plans. They have no ability to stir people's blood." And what I see in company after company is people's blood's just not stirred. They're just showing up, they're just mailing it in. In fact, you can see this very pronounced if you go and look at the typical mission statement on a company wall. You know, how do we know what the company believes? It's right there front and center when you walk in. How many of you, if you had to, could turn and recite your mission statement word for word to the person sitting next to you? I asked that of a very large IT group recently, and about 10% of the room, these were all C-level execs from some very large companies, raised their hand. Why? Because most mission statements read something like this: "We exist for the propagation of our continued quality customer service so that we can perpetuate the," right? Boring, not inspiring anybody. So in fact, I talk about in a company of owners something different from a mission statement, and we call it a BAM, a business actionable mantra. So let me ask you a question. How many of you have ever stayed at, had a drink at, driven by, looked at, heard of, seen an ad for the Ritz-Carlton? Raise your hand. Okay, I felt pretty safe with that. If you're not raising your hand now, I want to know what rock you're living under, okay? Never heard of the Ritz-Carlton. What kind of service do you expect to get if you were to go to a Ritz-Carlton? What kind of service would you expect to get? Top quality, 5-star. Exceptional. Okay, I never get like, meh, so-so, it's okay, you know, kind of mediocre. Why? Because consistently they provide phenomenal service. Now, does it matter where that Ritz-Carlton is located? Does it matter if it's in Dallas, Texas, or if it's in Bangkok, Thailand, or if it's in Naples, Florida? Does it matter the location? Absolutely not. How are they able to marshal that level of service consistently across thousands of employees? Well, part of it is because they don't have boring stuff. They do things that energize people and stir people's blood. Anybody have an idea what their business actionable mantra is? The thing they train every employee in? The thing they measure every behavior by? Any ideas? We are ladies and gentlemen taking care of ladies and gentlemen. And it shapes everything they do. If you're the person cleaning the room, how would I do this if I were doing this for my family member? If you're the person at the front desk, if you're the valet, if you're washing dishes, they do everything with that same level of attention. So I want to talk to you real briefly today about what I see as being some company culture killers. And then I want to talk about what it looks like to actually act like an owner and how you can build some of those behaviors into your folks. Does that sound good? Okay, awesome. So the first one, obviously, a dull and uninspired atmosphere. When Henry Ford started the Ford Motor Company, great American hero, he had a no jocularity policy at work. So I'm bringing back the word jocularity. Say it with me, jocularity. Okay, I want you to use that at least one time today in a sentence, okay? But people were not allowed to laugh or smile or have a good time at work. Ford saw that as a very bad thing. He said, listen, this is work. Work is serious business. This is about being serious. That is for after hours. That's for the stuff you do later. Big mistake on Ford's part, because what we've discovered in more recent years is, as Southwest Airlines says, people rarely succeed at something unless they're having a good time doing it. So one of the things I see as a company culture killer is just this dull and uninspired atmosphere. People are not having a great time at work. Number two, poison and low performers. Raise your hand if you know of at least one person who should be fired for low or no performance. Let's see it. Raise your hand. Okay. Why are those people still at the company? But I see this over and over again. And it's just that irritating edge. So I have a professor who used to ask this question: how much cow dung does it take to spoil a bowl of ice cream? I have been waiting for months to issue that line to y'all, okay? I mean, that's part of my normal talk, but I have been so stoked about using that here. It's just brilliant. How much cow dung does it take to spoil a bowl of ice cream? We got lots of ice cream samples over here in the exhibit room. Come around and say, whoa, hold on, we forgot an ingredient. You know, I live in Dallas, Texas. I brought some with me. Here, we're gonna sprinkle a little cow dung on there. How many takers do you think we'd actually have? Now, we may start something because think about it. It might qualify for a clean label, right? It's organic. You never know. Could be a hot new flavor. I don't recommend it. I don't want to just sink your company. How many low performers or poisonous performers does it take to spoil a company? Not many. I've seen one person in a department, one person in a company drag the whole thing down. In fact, high-performing cultures like Netflix has a particular policy. They say, we do not hire super intelligent jerks. It's too much damage on our teamwork. So poison or low performers, I call them pace cars. They get in the way of everything else and they drag everything down. And it's amazing what happens when you manage those people up or you manage them out and watch the projection. I had a guy recently I was talking to. We had been talking about a particular problem child of his. And he finally, after years and years of talking about it, let this person go. And he came in, he said, Daren, you would not believe, almost with immediately, even our high performers were performing at a much higher level when we removed that roadblock. So poison, low performers, friction. Okay, I need a volunteer for this. You're my man, come on up. What's your name? Juan, let's hear it for Juan. Juan, come on up on the big stage. Okay, so Juan, who do you work for? Fruitique. How did I know that, since it's right there on your shirt? Okay, so Juan, how long have you worked for Fruitique?
2.5 years.
2.5 years, okay. So something happened to Juan. He just found out that he won the lottery. He inherited a whole bunch of money. He got a big gift. He's got millions of dollars now. And Juan decides that he's gonna go start his own business. He's always wanted to start this business, and he loves Fruitique, still supports him, but he's gonna start this other business. His business is called this. I trade $1 bills for $5 bills, okay? I trade $1 bills for $5 bills. How many of y'all think that sounds like a good business model? Come on, do the math. Sounds pretty good, right? What if I told you that people are actually lined up around the block and they cannot wait to make this transaction? Now, does it sound like a good business model? Absolutely. So here's one. He opens up, first day of business. People are just itching. They're lined up early to go in and get, make this great transaction. First customer comes in, bring in a 5. Hi, thank you so much. Awesome, thank you. Next customer brings in another 5. Oh, that's so great, thank you, I'm so appreciative. Here comes another customer. Oh, this is fantastic. Here comes another customer. Oh, that's fantastic. If this is your business, how quick do you want to make this transaction? Pretty darn fast, right? In fact, I'd probably hire a bunch of y'all to come up here and say, hey, I'm gonna pay you 25 cents every time you make that deal. Come on, let's get this line going. Let's get it moving. Okay, big round of applause for Juan. I'm taking the money back. But here, Juan, I'm gonna give you a book for being a volunteer. Thank you so much. Okay. So let me ask y'all a question now. How many of you have ever stood 20 minutes or longer at a bar waiting on a drink? Raise your hand, okay? 30 minutes or longer at a bar. Okay, look around. Those are all the alcoholics in the room. No, just kidding. I've got my hand up as well. I went to a thing, an outdoor deal at Dallas one time. We're out at this big scene, we've got bands playing and phenomenal stuff. And you had to go stand in line 40 or 50 people deep to get a coupon so that you could stand in line another 40 or 50 people deep to get a beer. What do you think I did? I went home, okay? Why? Because that's friction. Is that not the bar business? I walk up and I hand you a $5 bill and you hand me a 50-cent Miller Lite, or I hand you a $10 bill and you hand me a 75-cent glass of wine or mixed drink or whatever. That's the bar business. In fact, is that not every business? So why in the world do we make it difficult for people to do business with us and to make those transactions? We are moving into a time where speed is everything, and where any level of friction slows business down and makes people walk away and go do something else. So I don't know about you, but I don't like standing in line. I don't like filling out forms. I don't like waiting. How many of you, raise your hand if you have ever left an item in a store because you got up there and the checkout line was just too long to check out? Look at this around the room. Money left on the table. Now, the king, obviously, at eliminating friction is a company that just last year, I believe it was, became the most profitable or dominant company in America, maybe in the world. Starts with an A. They surpassed another company called Apple. Anybody know who I'm talking about? Amazon. Raise your hand if you're an Amazon user. Look around the room. Why do we use Amazon? Because they have made it so easy to spend money with them. I mean, buy now, one click, get it Prime. If you're in a zip code where you've got Prime now, I'm sitting at my place the other day. I have to print a presentation to get ready for a lunch appointment. I'm out of copy paper. So that means I got to get up, get dressed, go buy the copy paper. I thought, no, I'm going to try out this Prime now. Ordered it. Within an hour, I've got a ream of copy paper sitting at my front door that someone delivered to me for a tip of $5. Okay? Pretty good deal. So Amazon has recognized you want to make a lot of money, make it easy for people to do business with you. Think about the kind of friction that is inherent in your system, and it's not just external. Think about the kind of friction that is present within the company and how difficult we make it for people to do their jobs, get stuff done because of broken this or bureaucracy that, or because they've got to go through 15 layers. I remember working at a company one time. They had to get 17 signatures, physical signatures, before something could move forward on something. I'm like, that is like the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard on the planet. So those are company culture killers. Let's talk about what it looks like to actually act like an owner. So you guys have been sitting for a little bit. I need everybody to stand up. Stand up. Okay, so here's what I want you to do. On the count of 3, I want you to adopt one of 2 positions. Okay, one is, I am Superman, I am Wonder Woman, okay? It's got to be big and bold, not like this, kind of floppy. I mean, make it really grand, okay? Or, I just won the lottery, I just won the marathon, okay? One of those 2 positions. You got to adopt one on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Hold it. Such a great photo op right now. Hold it. Wait, hold on. He's going to take a shot of that. 2 shots of that. Okay, have a seat. That actually has absolutely nothing to do with anything. I just want to see if I can get y'all to do it. No, I'm just kidding. It actually has something to do with everything. Harvard, Amy Cuddy did a study a few years ago, and what they determined in this study was that the way you use your physiology, the way you use your body, makes a difference in the way you show up to life, to relationships, to work. When people adopted an open position for just 2 minutes, you just do that for 120 seconds, some crazy cool stuff goes on in your body with your physiology. Testosterone, which is the confidence drug, that's I got it, I'm on it, I can nail this. Testosterone goes up. Cortisol, which is also a stimulant, but it's the not so good stimulant. This is the one that wakes you up in the middle of the night at 2 in the morning going, oh crap, this is never gonna work out, this isn't gonna happen, I can't make payroll, whatever the case. Any of y'all ever woken up with that kind of, anxiety? That's cortisol at work. When you adopt an open position, testosterone, the confidence drug, goes up. When you adopt when you adopt an open position, cortisol goes down. Conversely, if you adopt a closed position, so you're all hunkered over, you're crawled up in a fetal position in your bed, guess what? All you're doing is making it worse because testosterone, the confidence drug, goes down, cortisol goes up. In fact, they had people do this for just 2 minutes, go into a fake job interview where someone interviewed them for 5 minutes, videotaped it, took that video and showed a whole group of other people, random people, and said, who would you hire? And consistently they said they would hire the people who walked in after doing an open position. Why? Because they were just beaming and glowing in a sort of different way. Now, I don't think we see enough of that. By the way, this stuff really works. My daughter, little Callahan Claire, is a sophomore at the University of Texas. Okay, we have any? No. I did this in Oklahoma last week. I don't know what I was thinking. I'm like, oh, Ray, wrong audience. So hopefully I haven't offended too many people. I won't talk about the Dallas Cowboys being 8-1. Okay, got a few fans out there. So yeah, when she took her SAT, I talked to her afterwards. I said, sweetie, did you do it? And she's like, yes, Dad. I was in the other room doing this before I took my test just to get, and she's on a full ride to the Business Honors Program at University of Texas. So, I mean, I'm telling you this stuff works. Think about the way people show up at work. Think about the energy level at work. Is it something that kind of ignites enthusiasm? Is it something that gets people really jazzed? Or is it just that humdrum, drag down, typical what we live in the rest of the world? Because I'm convinced we're living in what I call zombie nation. I mentioned a lot of zombies today, but I was actually on a shuttle at the Denver airport, and we're riding on this shuttle, and I'm looking around. What I'm seeing from all the people around me is this, or this. And I got to the other end, and I called my buddy and business partner, Kevin Burgess, and I said, Kevin, we do not have to worry about the zombie apocalypse. He's like, we don't? I said, no, because guess what? It's already happened. All I see is zombies, everybody around. He said, Daren, that's so interesting. I don't know why we're always on the same path. But he said, just a couple of days ago, I'm sitting in North Park Mall with my son, which if you've been to Dallas, you know North Park. If you're in North Park Mall, some of the best brands in a very vibrant city, something ought to be going pretty well in your life. And he said he had his son, he gave him an assignment. He said, I want you to write down one-word description for everybody you see going by. After about 3 minutes, he said, okay, what do you got? Dead, lifeless, bored, uninspired. I mean, it was all these zombie kind of talk. And unfortunately, that is what we see at work a lot of times. Doesn't have to be that way. Now, I mentioned the Ritz-Carlton earlier, and you're going to say, oh, yeah, well, of course, those people perform at a high level because they're well paid, et cetera, et cetera. I could mention a lot of other companies. Chick-fil-A, consistent, just in terms of by the way, Chick-fil-A has a hiring process because this all starts with the kind of people that you hire. So one of Chick-fil-A's, my understanding, is hiring process is I sit there and I'm a manager and I'm interviewing you, got a stack of papers on the desk, and while we're having the interview, I inadvertently knock some of those papers off the desk. If you sit there very calmly while I bend over to pick up the papers, you're not working at Chick-fil-A. Why? Because they want people who actually are engaged and want to be helpful and so forth. So Chick-fil-A, there's a company in Vegas that people line up around the block to work for. They paid $12 an hour. After their training, they used to do, and I believe they still do, they did a thing where after the training to go to work for this company, they would offer you $2,000 not to come work for the company because they wanted to glean it down to the people who were really, really, really serious about working there. You can take a culture tour there and see kind of what they're about. It's not sexy, the business that they're in. Anybody know what company I'm talking about? Zappos. They sell shoes online. And yet they have one of the biggest retention rates and people excited about working with them. I was listening and hearing about a software company in Manhattan. And this software company, the owner has been very, inclusive about just getting people, hey, what do you need? How do we take care of you? What do we do? So he asked his employees that consistently, like, what do you need? What can make your life better? And they said, well, hey, we have a request. If you could do this for us, it'd be awesome. Could you put cots here in the workplace? Because sometimes we're really working heavy on a project and it gets kind of late at night, and to have to take that 20 or 40-minute train ride home and then come back the next morning 20, 40, it'd be great if we could just work way into the night and then just, pick back up in the morning. Could you just put some cots in? How cool would that be? Now that's engagement. Why? Because they've made the company have some meaning and something fun and something enjoyable for people to do. Okay, so owners show up differently. People show up to life either like Superman or Wonder Woman, or they show up as Eeyore. Anybody know Eeyore? What's Eeyore like? Drag, just kind of going through life. What do you have at your company? Do you have a bunch of superheroes who are super excited and enthusiastic? You know where that starts? That starts with you. And it starts with the kind of culture and the company that you're building, where people either get slapped down for being a little too enthusiastic or where people are really ignited to do that. Owners have an identity. Did anybody watch the Olympics this year? We have some Olympic watchers this year. Okay, so go back a little ways to 2008. It is in Beijing, China. The Summer Olympics are in Beijing, China, and it's a big, exciting time for Beijing. And as you remember from all previous Olympics, all the athletes come out, and at the very end of the procession is the host company. So China is coming out with this big, huge procession. They've got all their athletes and everybody. And you know it's a huge honor to be able to carry the flag and be in the front of your host country. So this year, 2008, Yao Ming is carrying the flag. Anybody recognize Yao Ming? Big 7-footer basketball NBA star. Yao Ming comes out, he's holding the flag, and everybody instantly recognizes him. How could you not? What they didn't recognize was you look down his arm and he is holding the hand of a little 9-year-old boy. His name was Lin Hao. And especially in the West, we're looking at that going, what the heck? Who's this little kid? Why, he can't be an athlete. What's he doing in the procession? Why is he holding Yao Ming's hand? And then you hear the story. So there had been earlier that year in the Sichuan province an earthquake of epic proportions. In fact, 70,000 people killed in that particular earthquake. It's one of the worst in the history of ever. So Lin Hao was sitting in this little province in his classroom with 28 other students when that earthquake hit and the school caved in on top of them, crushing them to the ground. Lin Hao somehow managed to climb out of the rubble, and even though he had cuts and bruises all over him, had been badly damaged, he manages to make his way out into daylight, and he is saved. So Lin Hao comes out, and then he does something really, really spectacular. He turns around and goes back into that rubble and starts pulling out classmate after classmate after classmate. All told, he rescues 8 other children out of that rubble. So when the workers showed up, and here's Lin Hao, he's circled the other kids in a circle, and they're singing songs so that he can distract them from this horrific event that has occurred. They go to Lin Hao and they say, Lin, we don't get it. Look, you were safe, you were out, you put yourself at risk. Why in the world would you go back into that rubble? We would have gotten here, we could have helped. Why did you take this on yourself to do this? And Lin looks at them with just this bewildered look and says, I have to. It's my job. I'm a hall monitor. It's my job to take care of the other kids. Okay. Now think about that. A 9-year-old that is so closely identified with a job title that he is willing to do heroic efforts. What does it mean to work at your company? How proud are people about being associated with it? Do they wear that with a badge of honor? Or is it something they kind of mutter under their breath? What's the identity? And I would come back and say, it has nothing to do with what they do. It has nothing to do with what you sell. Although, I gotta say for y'all, if you can't get excited about ice cream, come on, right? So, what do people identify with at your company? And do they see themselves with their job, or do they see themselves really with the company? Okay, owners have an enterprise view. So here's what I want you to do. Look around the room and find all the red in the room. Go. Look around, find all the red that you can see. Just make a mental note of all the red. Okay, close your eyes. Now think about and list out, close your eyes, and list out all of the blue that you saw in the room. Okay. All right, not so easy to do. Why? What were you looking for? You were looking for the red. So the reality is there's this little thing in our brains called a reticular activation system, and people see what they are looking for. If you decide that you're going to buy a Ford F-150 and you get out and you start driving around, what do you see all over the highway? Everybody's driving a Ford F-150, it just seems like. So we position and condition our brains to see that what we're looking for. So if you've decided, for example, the world's a mean, scary place and everybody's out to screw you over and it's just a terrible thing, what kind of people are you going to run into? Not so nice, mean people who are out to kind of screw you over at every turn. If you decide, on the other hand, that, wow, the world is a glorious place, everybody will help you at a moment's notice if you just ask and reach out, and people are always eager to be involved and connected, what kind of world do you see? Do you tend to get that kind of world? What do you expect for the people that work with you? I talk in the book, we won't go into this here, you've heard of it, Douglas McGregor talks about that the opinion of a manager largely shapes the kind of way people behave. If the manager decides people are not creative, you got to watch them all the time. When you walk away, they're not going to be working. You got to constantly stay on top of them. That's the kind of culture that's created. When a manager goes, people are immensely creative. Give them opportunities. Give them some things. Put them in charge of something. Watch how they surprise you. Then that's the kind of culture that you build. Okay. I need 2 more volunteers. Right there. Come on up, Dylan. 1 more. Okay, gotcha. Thank you for being voluntold. Yep, come on up here. Big round of applause. Chris, didn't you win the spa?
Yes, I did.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about that
All right.
afterwards. I'm feeling like spa. Okay, so here's what I want you to do. Dylan, I want you to actually face this way, and Chris, I want you to come stand over here and face Dylan. Now, this is not a trick. I'm not going to fool you in any way. I just want you to do exactly what I say.
Sounds like a trick.
Sounds like a trick. He's very suspicious. Have y'all noticed this about Chris? Okay, so Chris, here's what I want you to do. I want you to look past Dylan and describe all the objects, what you see in the room, okay?
Okay, blue curtain, blue lights, everything's blue.
Okay. That's very detailed. Okay, now thank you, Chris. Awesome. Now, Dylan, I want you to do the same thing. I want you to look past Chris, describe everything you see in the room.
I see green curtains, lots of tables, lots of people staring at us.
Okay.
And doors.
Okay, awesome. So we have a big problem here. I don't know if y'all heard this. Y'all can turn around. We have a big problem because what Chris said he saw and what Dylan said he saw did not match each other at all. So my question is, who's right? I mean, you know, who are you voting for here? The former president, amazing Dylan, they're both right. They can't both be right. This is America. We live in America. Somebody's got to be right. We've seen that just recently. Sorry, couldn't help. Throw that in there. Somebody's got to be right. Who's right? Silly question, right? Why were their descriptions different? Different point of view, different perspective, different point of view. So if Chris is going to understand what Dylan is talking about, what does he have to do? He's got to come around here and see it from his point of view. If Dylan's going to understand what Chris is seeing, what does he have to do? He's got to turn around and see it from his point of view. So, all right, big round of applause for them. Thank you. I guarantee you, 99% of the conflict that goes on in the workplace and relationships goes something like this. There are blue curtains and doors in the room. There are no blue curtains. Wait, those are blue. Sorry, green curtains. There are blue curtains. There are no doors in this room. And back and forth and back and forth. Stephen Covey said, seek first to understand and then to be understood. There's a proverb that says, he who speaks before listening, that is his folly and his shame. And Henry Ford, who I kind of negatively characterized earlier, but said this, if there's any one element of success, if there's any one truth about success, it is this. Now, when somebody is successful, as Henry Ford says, I'm about to give you the one secret to success. I don't know about you, but I sit up and pay attention. And what he said was, it lies in the ability to see the other person's point of view as well as your own. We get so stuck in our little point of view. This is what we want. This is how much we need to make. This is what we're producing. This is what, and we kind of fail to understand stuff from what's the user experience like with this? How is this being, I was using some app or something the other day that I guarantee the people that developed it have not used. Because if they had, they would have seen the frustration on my face. Let me show you what it takes to get into this thing and walk through and do this stuff. Seeing things from other people's point of view. I want to challenge you, go away with some homework, step into the body of your customer. See your world through the way they see it. Step into the body of your employees. Ask them if you're not sure. By the way, I have a book coming out a little bit later this year I'm super excited about. It's called Beached Whale. And in Beached Whale, I talk about companies that are stuck on a sand dune because they've or industries in some cases, because they missed the memo that the world as we know it is over. So it's called beached whale, learning to swim in the new ocean. And one of the indicators that you might be a beached whale company, you can go try this, is when you walk around the company and there's a Dilbert cartoon on every cubicle. You ever seen that? Okay. So that means they're trying to tell you something. If you have that within your company or you see that at any company, it basically means that people are shouting at you information that they don't feel like they can share in any other way. You're not seeing things from their point of view and what it really is like to be at that place and work at a place like that. One of the main things I do when I go into, sorry, Mom? Yeah, I can't talk right now. No, I'm just kidding. That was actually my alarm. One of the main things I do when I go into a company is I go out and I interview people and I find out not just what's the stated culture, but what's the hidden culture, what's really, really going on within that place. And sometimes those are dramatically different. And the bigger the gap between the hidden culture and the stated culture, the more dysfunctional the company is. Okay, so I mentioned books, gave a couple away. I brought a few with me, love to show them to you. This one's called Whiteboard. It's a hand-drawn, handwritten book that they're saying is the first of its kind. Actually, Leonard Cohen, God rest his soul, who just died, sent me an autographed copy of his poetry book because he loved this book so much. Somebody gave him a copy of it. This book is, I just got a phenomenal email from someone. I gave this to them on the plane. He said it has completely made its way around, transformed our company. We bought a bunch of extra copies, and it's changed the way we're doing business. It's called Company of Owners. It's really what we're talking about. So I've got a great deal for you on some books if you want to come see me at the table, but I've got an even better deal right now. Who would like a free copy of either of these books? Who wants a free copy? Come on. Who really, really, really wants a free copy? Who wants a free copy of one of these books? Who really, 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 really wants a free copy of one of these books? Okay, John and Daniel. Awesome. They deserve applause. I thought that was going to take 20 minutes for a little bit there. What did John and Daniel do that nobody else in the room did? They went to the ball, okay? They went to the action rather than waiting on it to come to them. I see this so often. When I was actually coaching my Callahan, I talked about my 19-year-old will be 20 in a couple of days. When I was coaching her 5-year-old little girl basketball league, I lined those girls up on the first day and I got them in these little parallel lines. Many of them had not ever played basketball before. And I'm standing there holding the ball and I start talking about the game and what the game's all about, the importance of the game. And I just inadvertently let the ball slip from my hands and kind of bounce between them. What do you think those little 5-year-old girls did? They just watched it roll by, okay? And that's when I went all evil on them. I said, don't you ever, ever, ever let me see a ball come that close to you and you not go after it. Do you not know this is what this game is about? So help me, if I ever see a ball come that close, if it's not in the hand of one of your team members, you go rip it out of whoever's hands it's in. You have to have that ball. We have to have this ball if we're going to dominate the game. You go after the ball. You go after it. Do you understand me? I did get a couple of calls from moms that night saying, my daughter can't sleep. She's laying in her bed crying because you traumatized her so badly. But I guarantee you from then on, in practice, if something like that happened, I dropped the ball, they were scrapping. We had a few broken bones, but you know, hey, it's all for the love of the game. But I wanted to instill in them this, don't just sit back and wait. Don't, what were you saying, Hoss, about? I've learned, don't take a back seat, okay, to anybody, to any situation. I think that is so true. Owners are people who go to the action. People who see a problem, they go after it, they fix it, they don't wait to be told. Which leads me to the last point. Owners leave it better than they found it. So they did an experiment in a company where they would take a wadded up piece of paper and they put it in the middle of a well-traveled hallway and then they just sat back and observed. And what they witnessed was person after person just walking by that piece of trash in the hallway until finally somebody would come along, they would reach down, they would pick it up, they would take it and go throw it in the trash, and then they would go interview them. Hey, why'd you do that? Why'd you stop and pick up the trash? And invariably they would give some kind of owner response like this, like, hey, this is my place, this is my house, this is my company. I care about this place, and I've got to take care of it. So I was actually out on a little power walk in Dallas. There's a lot of construction going on there. And I look over and I see a spotless cement truck. Now that sounds a little odd, right? And in fact, I look over and I see a guy that is down spit shining the chrome on the wheels there. So I keep walking. I go, no, I got to go back. So I go back and I go to the guy and I say, hey, I'm sorry. Can I interrupt you for a minute? He's like, sure. I said, are you the owner of this truck? And he goes, yeah, absolutely. And I said, so what are you doing? He's like, Captain Obvious, right? It's like, well, I'm cleaning the truck. And I said, yeah, but why? And I was expecting him to say something like, it's in our union contract, or the managers force us to, or if they come by and the truck's not clean. Instead, he just looked at me and goes, you got to take pride in your work, right? And I thought, that guy's an owner. Here's someone who gets it. But I guarantee you that company has hired people like that, instilled people like that, encouraged people like that. My buddy Walter Nussbaum was in an airport bathroom. He walks in one day and he sees a guy that has just pulled some paper towels off, washed his hands, he's drying his hands, and he's in a really nice suit. And he starts taking the paper towels and wiping down the counter and the sinks. And Walter comes by him, and being a little bit of a smart aleck, Walter goes, wow, they sure have well-dressed help around here. At which point the man chuckled a little bit and he said, yeah, but you know what they say? Leave it better than you found it. At that point, the guy leaves. Walter's coming up now. He's washing his hands. And guess what Walter did that time and every single time since? It was such a powerful message. In fact, we put that in a little co-written book called The Sink. Leave things better than you found them. But it was such a profound impact on them because that's what owners do. They leave things better than you find them. Do you see people walking by problems day after day in your business, not coming up with new solutions, all of that stuff? Many times we've drilled into people that we don't want to hear that stuff. Okay, so I'm going to close, but I want to close with a real quick story. Anybody recognize the name Clarence Saunders? Anybody? Okay, when I asked that question in Memphis, Tennessee, I've never had a hand go up, maybe one. I asked it in Memphis, Tennessee, and every hand in the room went up, and I went, oops, kind of forgot Clarence was from Memphis. So Clarence worked at a little dry goods store years and years ago, and his job was just to work for the owner, and what he would do is when people would come in and say, hey, I need a pound of flour, I need some sugar, I need, a bolt of cloth, whatever. Clarence's job as the clerk was just to go put all that stuff together, get it together for people, put it in a bag, and send them on their merry way. Clarence, though, wasn't your normal employee. He was an idea guy. In fact, Clarence had an idea a minute. He was constantly coming up with new stuff and new ways, and we could do this, we could do that. So much so that the owner finally told him one day, Clarence, I'm sick of all your harebrained ideas, and if you come to me with one more idea, you're fired. Okay, think about what a great boss that is. It reminds me another Henry Ford quote who said at some point, why when I ask for a pair of hands do I get a brain? Okay, very different way. This guy just wanted a machine. He wanted somebody to show up, just don't try to improve, don't make it any better. So Clarence did the smart thing and buttoned it up and quit coming up with ideas, or he quit sharing them, let's just say. He's out at lunch one day, he sees this big long line around this place, this new restaurant that's open. He's kind of intrigued with it, like, what's this all about? So he goes in and discovers the very first cafeteria. So he's in there and he's looking, what a phenomenal idea. I mean, before you would go to lunch, you had to sit patiently, you had to wait, you had to get your menu, then you had to order, then you had to wait for your food, then you had to wait to pay. This is brilliant. You walk in, you walk up, you see your food right there, you get to pick out what you want and the quantities you want, you see exactly what you're getting, you go to the end of the line, you pay, you go sit down, you eat, no muss, no fuss. He thinks this is genius. So Clarence goes back to his boss and he walks in and says, oh my goodness, I just saw the most amazing thing. He says, I have a great idea. And the boss goes, you are and before he can get the word fired out of his mouth, Clarence says, you can't fire me because I quit. So Clarence Saunders walks out of there and goes and starts the very first modern day grocery store. And it was one of these big box stores. It's a serpentine. You go in the door and you walk through, and it brought about all kinds of changes, all these inventions that had to come about, like the shopping cart had to come about. Branding largely started because of this, because think about it, before, when you walk in the grocery store, it's just, I need a pound of flour. They go get it out of a big vat in the back. Well, now your flour's on the shelf, your flour's on the shelf, your flour, my flour, and I've got to make it stand out. Nobody knows this better than this group. Got to make it stand out in some way, so you're putting new and improved, or you're putting pictures of babies on it, or you're putting little arrows saying, theirs is toxic, it has poison in it, it's got rat poison, don't buy their flour, right? So branding largely started. Who knows, by the way, the name of the first grocery chain? It's still in some states. A&P, good guess. Piggly Wiggly. Okay, I told you branding had not been invented yet, right? What would you name it? Piggly Wiggly. Yeah, Piggly Wiggly. Who knows the name Steve Sasson? Anybody recognize the name Steve Sasson? Sasson. I think I'm saying it right. He killed Kodak. How did Steve Sasson kill Kodak? He invented the digital camera and took Kodak from 145,000 employees to today, I think they're hovering under 3,000. Virtually just brought that company down. You want to hear some irony about that? Who did Steve Sasson work for when he came up with the digital camera? Kodak. He was an engineer working for Kodak, and they went, ooh, this is going to destroy our business. We can't now keep that on the down low. Let's not, nobody's really going to ever want this. You know, people want to go to the store and get their photos, and short-sightedness. So here's the closing question for you. When you look at those two examples, Clarence Saunders and Steve Sasson, then you see the statistic that the Kauffman Institute just came out with last year, 2015, that said we have the largest number of people leaving traditional companies to go start their own thing in the last 20 years. It's phenomenal, the number of people that are just walking away saying, I'm going to go do my own thing. So here's a question for you. Do you think it's the Stacys or the Crawleys that are leaving? I guarantee it's not the Crawleys. Because the people you want to leave never leave on their own, right? You keep hoping and wishing. It's the Stacys. And when Stacy walks away to go to the rock star employee goes to start a new company, what kind of industry or business does she focus on? Probably the one she's coming from. So is it possible that if we don't build and support and nourish and build a culture that really supports an owner mentality, where people like Clarence Saunders can come with their ideas and those things can be implemented and used, because the reality is none of us is as smart as all of us, right? Good old Japanese proverb. Is it possible that by not fostering that, your biggest, highest performer could lead the company and go away and become your largest competitor? You bet it is. So we don't want that to happen to anybody in the room, and there's one solution for that, and that is for you to build a company of owners. God bless you. Thank you.